We're here today to talk about the hours of service change that went into effect on Monday night. We're going to talk a little bit about the new 30-minute break as well. And we've got the information up here from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regs. There again, the 30-minute break. This was the previous ruling on how they were put out. You know, prior to Monday night, the 8-hour break consisted of when you started your day, 8 hours from that point, you would have to have done a 30-minute break. And it either was off duty or in the sleeper. And the new change, the way it's going to read, is it has to do with 8 hours of drive time. So, for instance, you start your day at 6 o'clock, you do your pre-trip, and let's say you're waiting at a shipper to load, and you're there for, another hour. Your actual 8 o'clock or 8-hour clock does not start until you start driving the truck. The time that you used prior to it does not count to the new 8-hour clock. Okay, so it's just strictly off of your drive time. Once you accumulate 8 hours of drive time, then you're to take a 30-minute break. Okay, the 30-minute break can consist of 30 minutes on duty, 30 minutes off duty, or 30 minutes in the sleeper, or a combination of the three. Most generally, probably what we're going to see is they're going to show 15 minutes on duty, and 15 minutes off duty, or you may see a 30-minute in the sleeper. But most generally, the thing about it is this is going to give you 30 minutes back on your 14-hour clock, because you can utilize on-duty time for your 30-minute break, and I think that's a plus for everyone. A lot of the calls we've had this week, guys would call in and, they were so used to the old method that, once you start your day, your 8-hour clock starts. Well, now your clock will not start until you start to drive. And then 8 hours cumulative drive time, you will need to take a 30-minute break. And that's pretty much it. If you want to scroll down, Corey, to the log right here, this is just an example. We started here at midnight, and drove till 5 o'clock in the morning. Took a 30-minute break on duty. And then he drove another another 5 hours. Took another break, drove an hour, and then he finished his day at 2 p.m. And if you'll note, he had accumulated 11 hours of drive time, but nowhere did he drive 8 hours. He broke it up at 5-minute increment or 5-hour increments. So I think that's it's going to help us out. And we're going to be talking next, here about the split sleeper berth changes that came out on the September the 29th. What we're going to do is explain to you the old rule and then, the changes to the new rule. Basically the old rule, you just had an 8 and 2 split where, the 8 hours would stop the clock, and the 2 hours were part of your 14. Okay? The 8 hours had to be in the sleeper. The 2 hours could either be in the sleeper or off duty. So that was the old provision. The new provision is now, they still have the 8 and 2, and now they're implementing also a 7 and 3. The advantage of the new one is that, you're going to be able to regain your hours of drive time in the event that you get held up either at a shipper, receiver, or if you just decide to take a 2 or 3 hour break, you know. So there again, it has to be a minimum of 2 hours, and the second part has to be at least 7 hours, but the second part has to be in the sleeper. You know, the 2 or the 3 could either be off-duty sleeper, but your 7 and 8 has to be in the sleeper berth. If it's not in the sleeper berth, it's not going to give you, you know, the provision for the split break. So you have to make sure that the second part is in the sleeper. And, you know, we've experienced several logs this week where guys have tried to use it, and for those that it's not been allowing to do it is simply because they've tried the 7 and 8 off duty, and it will not accept that because the provision states it has to be in the sleeper. Okay, this slide here is going to show us a log using the utilizing the new split break. We're going to, you know, start the log at midnight till we're going to assume at 6 a.m. the driver's had 10 hours off. So he's going to start his day at 6 o'clock. You know, he drives for 3 hours, say he gets to a shipper and he's there for 4 hours. Then he, you know, comes out at 1 o'clock and he drives an hour, and let's say he's going to, you know, he's going to meet some people for lunch, and he's going to take a long lunch for 3 hours, and he's off duty. So he takes 3 hours off till 5 o'clock. And if you'll look, at 6 o'clock when he started his day, his 14 on the old rule would be up at 8 p.m. Okay, under the new rule, because he met, you know, he qualified for a split break, these 3 hours is basically going to pause his 14-hour clock. Or as I use the term, it pushes the 14. So if you go back, he comes down, he drives for another 3 hours because he met the first part of a split break. Now he can push his day out 3 hours because of this rest break. And remember, you know, on the old rule, he would have had to quit at 8 o'clock. But under this new rule, he can push his 14 out 3 hours. Now, once he does that, the second part of qualifying for this break is now he has to go into the sleeper for at least 7 hours. Okay? So, and then, you know, he qualifies for, you know, 3 and 7 gives him his 10 hours. Now, probably what we'll see with our guys, a lot of them, you know, aren't going to keep splitting, you know, time and time and time. Most generally when they go in here, they're just going to take a 10-hour break. And keep in mind, it still has to be in the sleeper. And then they're going to refresh their 11 and 14 because it's, you know, so much easier to keep up with. Now, you know, the beauty of the Omnitrax IVG that we use, you know, it pretty well keeps up with your time, and it's going to let you know, when your 14 is up, when you're utilizing this 8 and 2, 7 and 3 split. So, I think it's a great, that, the FMCSA has put this out. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and the greatest thing I like about it, where I was against the 14-hour rule, was you just take this same scenario and just say at 2 o'clock you're getting tired or sleepy, And let's say you're coming into, or coming into a major city, and you just want to take a nap and let traffic die down. You can, take you 2-3 hour nap, and you're not penalized against your 14-hour clock. So that way you get to keep, you'll get your 11 hours of drive time. You won't lose it like you used to on the old split. And there again, we're dealing with a lot of calls this week, on the 30-minute break and the split break. And I think what a lot of guys are going to do on the split break, they're just going to utilize the push, to push their 14 out, and then they're just going to take a 10-hour break. But you got to remember that second part of this has to be in the sleeper. So if you have any questions, feel free to call the safety department. We'll be happy to answer the questions and, explain it a little more in depth. Thank you.